everyone for coming tonight because this is really important. But I know it takes dedication on your part to show up for an event like this. We'd all rather be perhaps off doing something else than learning new things. So I feel like I've made a bunch of new friends. To begin with, I'd like to stop and thank our program sponsors for tonight. We have Sanofi-Genzyme, Biogen, and Mallinckrodt, who provided the funding to feed us, to host us, and which is really terrific. I'm Laura Kolaczkowski, and I'm from Ohio. I introduced myself to a bunch of you. I'm so excited to see the sunshine, because we haven't seen it for maybe like 32 days in Ohio yet. And to say nothing of it, it is above freezing, so which is great. And I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm also a member of the board of directors for MS Views and News. It's a really special organization, and he's now stepped out of the room. Stuart, are you within earshot? The founder of MS Views and News is at the back of the room. This is Stuart Schlossman. He's the brains and the driving force behind this program, who started just a few years ago with Stuart being frustrated that education didn't reach everyone for MS, and he now is doing programs all over the country, basically 1 or 2 a week. So I don't know, he's rarely home in his home in Florida. So I'd like to acknowledge Stuart and his hard work, and thank you for bringing this. Now, I don't know what he's signaling me, because he knows he put me up here. He sprung this on me yesterday when we showed up. He said, I want you to moderate tonight, which I've done this before. I'm in town for another really important meeting that's going on. I'd like to think this is equally as important as what's happening on the other side of town. There's the America's Committee for Treatment for Research in MS going on, and it's researchers looking at cutting-edge things and advances in MS towards finding a cure for us. But in the meantime, we have to learn to live with this disease. Among the people that are here tonight, not just myself and my husband from Ohio, but we have some other wonderful guests here who you may be familiar with them online, and I would just like to briefly introduce them. Back here I have Lisa Emmerich. She is one of the original bloggers for multiple sclerosis. Lisa writes for multiplesclerosis.net, and she also writes for Health Central. And I know probably a bunch of you have already met our other notary blogger here, who's sitting solo by himself. I'm not sure why. He looks like he's in timeout. This is Dave Bexfield. Dave founded Active MSers, right? ActiveMSers.org is his website, and he's done amazing things. If you don't know him, I would check him out. Just a couple real quick points I want to make before we begin. Tonight's presentation is being recorded. We know the urge to get up and leave, stretch, whatever, go to the restroom is inevitable with a group of people with MS. Please be conscious of where the camera is and don't step in front of it so we're not obstructing that view. Also, if you'd be sure your cell phone is turned off. Off or at least silenced. The last time I did a program I moderated, there was one phone that went off. Guess whose it was? It was Stuart. Yes. So anyway, if you would turn that phone off so doesn't interrupt the speaker, and also it's not captured on the video. That thing, the restrooms are located out there. Please feel free to get up and go as you need to. And finally, I know this is, for many people, it's an opportunity to sit and visit with your friends you haven't seen for a while, or make new friends in the MS community. And we've got a lot to say. Listen to me, I talk all the time. I would encourage you to not be talking during our presenter, because those sounds do get picked up on the video too. So we want to have a really good quality video to be able to use when we're done. So our first speaker tonight is David Lyons. David was diagnosed with MS at the age of 47. He's a bodybuilder. He's owned fitness centers, and he has a Bachelor of Science degree in nutrition. So he's done a lot already, and he's still a young man. Now, David's tackled his MS head-on through bodybuilding, and along with his wife, Kendra, they created the MS Fitness Challenge. And they have a foundation that supports people with MS in their efforts to stay fit as possible, overcome limitations, and to keep moving. David has been recognized for his groundbreaking work in MS fitness in a number of ways, including being the recipient of the Health Advocate Lifetime Achievement Award presented by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the year 2015. He was recently honored with special recognition from the National Fitness Hall of Fame. David's Goliath is the name of his autobiographical book that he's published about his MS journey. And then most recently, he's published Everyday Health and Fitness with MS. David is a columnist for Everyday Health. He works with organizations such as MS Workouts, the MS Foundation, of course, MS Views and News. And he shares his approach to fitness with MS through strength and weight training. David's also a founding partner of the National Fitness Hall of Fame Institute for Educating Fitness Specialists and Enthusiasts. MS Views and News is very pleased that we could welcome David Lyons to the stage to share his story of his life with MS. There will be a question and answer period immediately when he's finished. Make notes, be ready to ask him. He's ready to answer you. David?
How we doing?
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura. She said I'm a young man, and I guess 60 years old is young these days, but thank you for that compliment. So how's everybody doing tonight? Do we have some energy here? Great, great. Tonight I'm going to talk about the F word, fitness. You know, it's a word that's kind of been left out of the MS community for many, many years. And the problem that we had is originally the medical community and you know, the whole world of what was going on in MS was telling people like us that we needed to take it easy. We needed to relax. We shouldn't overexert ourselves. Exercise was not good. And you know, we're finding over years of doing the exercises and getting ourselves physically fit is that's absolutely not true. It's actually the opposite. It's very important to live a lifestyle of fitness with multiple sclerosis, just like it is with any condition and just like it is for someone who's healthy. But you know, there's ways of doing this, and this should be part of a management program for everyone with multiple sclerosis. So if you're taking medications and you're listening to your neurologist and you're doing the things that you need to do, you also need to incorporate a fitness program, because that has to be part of everything that you're doing every day of your life to conquer MS and to battle this, you know, the battle that we have. So I'm going to give you kind of an overview tonight. If I was going to give you a complete workout program and really get into it, I would be up here for hours, and Stu doesn't want me to do that. So what we'll do is we'll give you a kind of a taste of what fitness is and what it should be for someone with multiple sclerosis. So to start with, and you could follow along on the, you know, on the slides up here, there are 3 keys to fitness. It's not just going to a gym, and it's not about bodybuilding. Okay, I know people look at me and I'm a bodybuilder and, you know, they get all scared, you know, is Dave going to tell me I need to be a bodybuilder and do what he's doing? Absolutely not. I don't even recommend what I do for people with multiple sclerosis because I push myself to the competition level, which is a little bit past what should be done for multiple sclerosis. But what I teach people is the lifestyle of fitness, and it's general fitness, and whether that fitness is climbing a mountain, if that's what you want to do, or just getting up in the morning and walking your dog, it's all fitness. And there's 3 keys to that fitness. The first is mental fitness. The second is exercise and physical fitness. And the third is the nutrition part of it. Those are the 3 parts of being able to manage a healthy lifestyle. It's not just going to the gym and going and eating junk food. And it's not just, I'm going to go and eat healthy and it's going to make me feel great. There's aspects to it. The mental part of it, I believe, is actually the most important part of it. Because if you cannot get your mind fit, and ready to do this, and prepared mentally to battle this disease, you will never get the body to get physically fit to follow. So the body can only do what the mind tells it to do. You have to have short and long-term goals. This can't be just a vague idea that you have in your mind where I'm going to go and exercise. You have to mentally be ready to do this, and you have to do things that will help visualize how you want to look and feel with multiple sclerosis. It's not just about a blanket statement as I'm ready to go. There's things that you need to do. So one of the most important things that I found is that you need to keep track of your progress and the goals that you have. You can't do anything unless there's a game plan in place. And mentally, you have to have that game plan set. Use vision boards. I used a vision board when I was training to get this award from Arnold Schwarzenegger. When he told me he was giving me this award, I was not in the top shape that I normally, like to be, and he gave me very little time to do it. So mentally, I had to prepare myself. How am I going to get into the shape that I need to get into? So I went into a vision board, and I created pictures. And I created, if you look at that, I created the picture of when I first got my trophy, when I stood on stage at 50 years old and competed in a bodybuilding competition when they told me I would be in a wheelchair a few years earlier. I had that up there because that set my mind to, I can do this. I put a picture of Arnold. Arnold's watching me. He knows he's going to hand me this award. Do I want Arnold to be disappointed? No. So I had a picture of Arnold. I put in little goals, long-term and short-term, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and I made sure that I was mentally prepared to take every step that I was going to take along the way. And then I put in a little bit of inspirational talk. Now that last picture is what I looked like after Arnold gave me the award. So that wasn't up there originally. I put that afterwards, and now I'm using that board to go to the next step. So vision boards are very, very important because they get your mind in the place that it needs to be able to move forward. The other thing that I believe we should do is journals. Now, journaling, it's a pain in the butt because you have to write everything down and you have to kind of keep track of everything. But that journal will help you along this journey that you have. It'll enable you to look back and see where you were, and every day that you're doing it enables you to look forward to what you're going to do the next day. So journaling is another very important mental part of this, because if you know you have a journal, you know you have yourself accountable to yourself. You don't need to be accountable to me or anybody else in this battle. You need to be accountable to you. When you look in the mirror and you get up in the morning to do this, you have to say to yourself, I can beat this disease. And however you choose to do that, whether it's working out at home, whether it's going to a gym, whether it's getting a trainer, whatever direction you decide to take, you have to have in your mind that you're going to do it. Things like journals and visual boards help you do that. You also have to find a way to relieve the stress. You're dealing with stress every day, whether it's your day-to-day life or whether it's the disease itself. We know that MS is a stressful disease because we're not sure what tomorrow brings. We deal with the pain, we deal with the numbness, we deal with the symptoms. So we have to have some way of relieving that stress. Yoga, meditation, positive affirmations, these are things that are important in relieving stress. Find what works for you. If going outside and taking a long walk and just thinking about nothing is the way for you to de-stress, then do that. If sitting alone in a room is a way for de-stressing, do that. If yoga is a way, do it. If just telling yourself positive things over and over and over again is a way to de-stress, do it. But you have to have stress relief in your day to be able to continue to move forward, because you're constantly bombarded with the stress of life and the stress of the disease. So the second part and the second key of fitness is the exercise part. And we're going to show you exercises after I speak, so I'm not going to speak too long because I want you to kind of see a demonstration of what you can do and what the capabilities are with exercise. But so that you know this, because everybody seems to believe a 30-day workout or an insanity program or these things that you see on television is the way to go, because they're driven into your heads that you have to have this type of rigid program that's going to turn you into a fitness model in 30 days. It doesn't work that way. All of that is garbage, and it makes no sense for people with MS. We need a program, and we need a program that works at the level that we're at and progresses from there. So whether you're in a wheelchair or whether you're running and you have MS, you start there, and you don't start and grab onto some program that tells you that you should be doing something intense for 30 minutes, for 30 days, and you're going to be in tip-top shape. It does not work like that. There's no one-size-fits-all program when it comes to working out to conquer MS. You must address the symptoms and specifically work on the weak areas to strengthen the muscles that you have and to combat your lack of flexibility and your spasticity and the balance issues that are caused by MS. You have to hit those weaknesses and strengthen them. If you're using a trainer, that trainer must have knowledge and experience with multiple sclerosis. You can't just go get somebody who says, I've worked out my whole life, or I'm a trainer, and they start working with you, because all too often I've seen that happen, and those people don't understand what you're going through with multiple sclerosis. They don't understand how to work around your weaknesses, and they certainly don't have the empathy to understand what you're going through. So a trainer that has experience with multiple sclerosis is extremely important before you engage in going and hiring a trainer. Any exercise routine must be adaptable to you and easily altered for the symptom changes that we have. So again, there's no one-size-fits-all. And even when you start engaging in a fitness program, you have to be able to adapt that program depending on how you feel and what's going on in your life. Programs also need to focus on safety. For us, we could fall over just standing still. So you don't want to get into a program without making sure that the things you're doing are safe while you're doing it. You know, there are things like keeping a chair next to you when you're doing standing movements, so in case your balance is lost, you hold on to something. You don't ever want to exercise where if you're going to lose your balance and you fall over, you're going to hit something where you can get hurt. So you have to be cognitive of your surroundings when you exercise and make sure that you're safe. There are also a variety of affordable and easy to use equipment that you can use at home. So when people say to me, well, I can't afford a gym membership or I can't afford a trainer, that's still not an excuse. Nobody's telling you you have to spend a lot of money to get into shape and to be involved in a fitness program. You could get inexpensive dumbbells for the house. You could use resistance bands, and there's many different types of them. You could get bands, a complete set of bands like that in that picture, for under $20. You need a balance ball because that's something that is going to help you with your coordination and your balance and your core. There are inexpensive balance balls. You don't have to buy the $200 balance ball. You just have to have some of this equipment at home so that you can exercise at home if that's what you choose to do. The third part and the third key of fitness in general is nutrition. Nutrition is a very, very complicated subject. And I could spend hours just going into the fitness part of this. What we see now, just so we have a little bit of an overview of nutrition, are diets for MS. And there's a lot of them. There's carbohydrate-restricted diets like the Walls Protocol. There's the MS diet for life. There's fat-restricted MS diets like the Swank diet and the MS recovery diet. But there's no miracle diet that will cure multiple sclerosis. So when you read these stories of the miraculous person that was sitting in a wheelchair and ate a whole bunch of asparagus and jumped out of the chair, and now they're running marathons, please take all of that with a grain of salt. And what I want you to understand with the nutrition part is that you have to keep your body anti-inflammatory. And I'm sure most of you know these things. But there are foods and there are supplements that you can take. There are fruits like berries that are anti-inflammatory. There are things that you eat that are inflammatory that you should not be eating. Okay? We know that sugar is an inflammatory product. We know that some people get inflamed by eating too many carbohydrates. Everybody is different though. So I right now am following the Walls protocol to test it on myself because I hear a lot about the Walls protocol. And it's a great diet. It's very healthy, but it still does not mean that it's going to work 100% for you, and that it's going to be the miracle that's going to get you out of a wheelchair if you're in one, or running marathons if that's something that you want to do, like Dr. Walls. You have to find what works for you. Nutritionally, you have to experiment. So you have to learn your body. There are people that burn fat better than they burn carbohydrates, and then vice versa. So you pick one of these diets that are really geared for MS, let's go with the Walls diet. And then you modify it based on how you feel. So if you're on that diet and you're doing it for 60 days and you feel that you're still having exactly the same symptoms, maybe there's something in there that's still giving you inflammation. So each diet has different types of alterations of it. Some of them allow you to eat grains. Others tell you that grains are not good for you. But grains might be fine for me, and they might make your body completely inflamed. So my takeaway with nutrition is, again, everybody is an individual. Just like Dave's symptoms maybe are different than my symptoms today, even though we both have MS and we both have the same name. That doesn't mean that we feel the same. And it doesn't mean that what Dave is doing today, that this Dave, if he does that, is going to help me. So you have to take control of yourself, and you have to be very proactive, and you have to be very fitness driven. And with that, you have to get the mind, the body, and the nutrition all together, and it does not happen overnight. This is not a quick fix, and this is something that you have to put the time and effort to. There are great resources, and you have to become active in gaining knowledge about fitness for multiple sclerosis. There are online groups. I have the MS Fitness Challenge gym group, and we have over 1,400 people that have joined up just within the last few months because we just launched it. On that Facebook group, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of positive feedback. There's a lot of questions and answers. This is how you learn, and this is how you're able to start adapting for yourself by hearing from other people that are going through the same thing you are. It's communication. It's interaction with each other. You have to be able to engage and understand what fitness means and what nutrition means for you specifically. You have to read articles on MS and fitness, such as my article, MS Fitness Challenge, is a column at Everyday Health, and I write that on a monthly basis. And we talk about all different types of fitness things that are going on in the world. We interview people that have done extraordinary things with multiple sclerosis, despite having the disease and despite having symptoms, what they've done with exercise and nutrition and mindset to overcome it. These are the positive things and the informative things and the educational things you need to continue to put into your brain so that you can stay focused on a fitness program. You should enroll in an affordable online exercise program that'll work at the level that you're at. msworkouts.com is a great resource for that. Now, you can use my code, which is David, and they will give you actually 25% off of the subscription. What's good about something like that is it keeps you accountable 24/7. You could go online anytime you want and find the exercises that you want to follow, and they will help you create a program. I'm the senior fitness director for that company, so I help them to help you create programs that you can work with at the level that you're at. But those are things that you need to be able to do. And you also need, if you're going to go with a trainer, like I said before, is find an MS experienced trainer who's worked with many people with MS, has a track record of success in getting results with people with MS. There's my good friend Jeff Siegel in Florida that works with Stu down there. Tremendous knowledge, and he has MS. There are people like this all over the country, and they're working with me now. I have trainers in New York, I have trainers all over. I have trainers in Australia and the United Kingdom as well. And these are people with multiple sclerosis that have gone through MS training and understand it, and they have the disease themselves. Those are the type of people you want to get involved with if you're looking for an MS fitness type of program. I have my book out, which I'm not going to sit here and plug, but that's something else that will give you a lot of knowledge on fitness and exercise and nutrition and mindset. And then there's, of course, our website that you can go to and take a look at and get information. There's a lot of information. Like I said, I cannot put it all in a short period of time here. I would have to give you a really in-depth program. But each one of you individually can reach out to us. You can start a program of educating yourself online and getting the things that you need to start first with the mindset and then moving into the body. You know, remember this, what affects us also affects our family and the people that we love, the care partners that we have. We've changed caregivers to care partners now. So the people that live with you and the people that deal with you every day are affected the same way you are. They worry about us. They get depressed seeing us if we're depressed. They tend to not do things like take walks, go shopping, because a lot of us with MS can't do those things, so they feel bad and they don't do them. But when we strengthen ourselves as people with MS, we have hope. We give ourselves a happy mindset and we're encouraged. So that encourages them. We need to look at what we can do and not what we can't do. And if we continue to do that, the people around us, again, will have a positive attitude towards us and be able to help us more. There's no sense in sitting around being depressed about what we have. Let's look at what we can do, and let's find those things in fitness that will enable us to strengthen our bodies and be able to do the things that we want to do. What I want to do now is I want to show some exercises that you can do at home very, very cheaply with just using a chair if you're in a wheelchair, or if you're not and you're standing, oh, you got it? You can do it as well. So I brought 2 sets of bands, and we're going to show, and we won't go through a whole program here because it would take too long, but we're going to show Michelle. Now, Michelle has multiple sclerosis. Now, Michelle has been through my MS Fitness Challenge more than once.
To do that. And as he was mentioning, I was a ballerina for 18 years. So I was used to being physically active and everything else. And what I was saying was I did everything that Dave has spoken about up there. And I put it all into practice. I really put my life into it. I worked out with a trainer 3 times a week for an hour. And when I first came, there was times where I spent the whole time on an exercise table or a stretch table because I couldn't do anything. And the trainer had to wake up my muscles again because it had been years and years since I had been able to use them. And there were times when I went to the gym and my success was I got there, but I couldn't do anything. And my trainer would say, "How are we doing today?" And I'd say, "I'm here," and that's it. And then he would work out my body for me. So he just made a huge difference in my life.
Well, There you go. Yeah, she deserves that. Well, Michelle is living proof that you can do what you want to do if your mind is there and you follow a program. So real quickly, I'm just going to show you a couple of things that you can do. Yeah, we'll sit. Okay. Let me get this on here first. Hold on, okay.
Should I sit or wait?
We'll sit here. Okay, so we're going to put this on your foot. Okay, so this is an exercise that whether you're standing, and Kendra does not have MS, but people that are standing with MS that don't need to either be in a wheelchair or sit can do an exercise called squats with the bands, which are very inexpensive. So that's a squat, and if you can do that, and I would suggest with multiple sclerosis to take a further wider stance for the balance part of it. And this is going to help not only with the legs, but with the core, because as you squat, you're squeezing the abdominal muscles. So that is helping with the core movement. Now for Michelle, if she can't if she can't squat because she's either in a wheelchair or has really serious balance problems, what she can do for her leg is do a leg extension. So you're basically taking that same cable or the resistance band and putting it around a chair on your foot and then stretching forward. And that is working her thigh and her leg muscle even though she's sitting in a chair. And one of the other problems that we all have is... Okay, you want it up here? All right. Okay. So we're going to show you the leg extension again. I know I'm going a little bit over time here, but Stu, this is important stuff. Okay, so So this is a leg extension, and it's very easy. Anybody can do this. Now, if you have mobility problems and you can only go this far up, that's all you do. All of this works at the level that you're at. You don't have to worry about doing a complete movement. You just have to worry about starting the movement. So she's able to go all the way, but if she couldn't, it would still help because you're triggering the mind and the muscle to work, and it ends up bypassing the nervous system. So there's a lot of science and there's a lot of documentation on this that if you want to reach out and ask me about, I could discuss with you. But just the movement alone, even at a short pace, is going to help somebody be able to start moving those legs more. The other thing... One other brief exercise you can show us before we move on. Yeah, well, I want to show one thing that's very important is drop foot. So a lot of us, and I have drop foot. You could keep the same band and do the same type of leg movement here just by your foot. And so instead of lifting the leg up and down, all you're doing is pushing the foot. And even if you're only doing it this much, it's enabling those muscles in the foot and in the shin to strengthen. And it's telling your body from your head to your foot to do this. And as you continue to go, you're going to be able to start moving that foot more and the drop foot gets less. I have helped my drop foot tremendously by doing exercises like this. And there's tons of exercises for upper body, for lower body. A lot of this is in my book. It's online at msworkouts.com. There's a lot of ways that we can help you. Just reach out to me and I'll be able to do that for you. Stu, do you want to do any Q&A now? Or am I that far over? Okay, thanks, Michelle.
So I have a question for everybody sitting there listening to them. Did anybody stretch today? Raise your hand.
There you go.
Did anybody climb a flight of stairs, slowly, fast? I don't care. Y'all got lots of stairs that I see people running up and down. Stairs are great for you. Did anyone do anything that you felt kind of helped strengthen you today, physically? I've sat in meetings all day long, so I'll be honest, I've not done anything except sit and eat and drink. So I would hope that listening to David today, you picked up a little bit of that challenge of want to do something for yourself We can't do it for you. No one else can do it for us. We have to be motivated to begin on our own. So, Dave, do you have any final word you want to add to?
Well, I would love for you guys to hear testimonials. Maybe afterwards, if anyone would like to hear it, I could do that. I don't want to take too much time up here now. But thank you all for coming. Just being here and being involved in what Stu is doing, you're taking a step in a positive direction. I'm easily accessible through the internet, online, emailing me to ask questions. But please be proactive and reach out and let us help you to help yourself find what you can do and not what you can't do. Thank you very much.
Okay, now, there are two things I need to back up and do because I really didn't have myself well organized here tonight. One is we have a tradition at MS Views and News to invite any local support leaders who might be in the audience to take a minute or two to just talk about what they're doing in their community and give you information where you're going to find them. So Alyssa, can you want to come up and join us and tell us a little bit about what you're doing? You can do it right here if you want, or... And this is Alyssa. I forget her last name because I have MS. I don't remember anything.
Hi, my name is Alicia Ring, and I'm the leader of the Claremont support group. We have a lot of attendance sometimes, and sometimes it's just 4 or 5 of us. But we share all of our concerns, and maybe someone will say that they're having pain in a certain part of their body, and someone else can address that because they have the same problem. I also try to get speakers for our meetings to take some time to talk to us about how we can alleviate some of the problems that we all have with MS. So it's really quite an informative group. We meet the first Friday of every month at the Claremont Denny's that's in Claremont Square. And I would like to invite any of you who live close by to please come to the meeting, bring your family members or your caregivers, and just see if it's something that you'd like to do. If anyone is interested, please come and see me and I'll get more information. Thank you very much.
I'll make this quick. I am a leader of the support group in Menifee, and just recently started it. Dave actually got me in with the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. That's very hard to say, but I just call it the foundation. But our group is it's a positive group. We can get negative with all the things we have going on with this disease and everything, but I refuse to do that. So we encourage each other. We're friends, a group of friends who just support each other, and we too have different topics and stuff like that. And it's just a family. So it's in Menifee. Please feel free to come. It's the 3rd Wednesday of every month.
I want to put in a personal plug for an initiative I work with, which is I Conquer MS. We are a patient-led, patient-directed research project. A number of people here are familiar with this. A whole bunch of people already have joined and shared their health knowledge. We're looking into improving quality of life for people with MS. And if you would, please either see me afterwards or go to our website. It's really simple. It's like an iPhone name, but it's iconquerms.org. Please sign up at least to get our emails and get more information on how you can make a difference for MS research. So I'm not going to climb back up on stage to introduce our next speaker. But I have with us tonight Leslie Tarlow. She is a nurse practitioner and an MS provider at the MS Center at Keck Medical Center at USC in LA. Ms. Tarlow completed a Master of Science degree in nursing. She's board certified as a gerontology nurse practitioner, and she also has her board certification as an MS registered nurse, certified nurse, I'm sorry. So she's got a little bit of everything going on with that RN that she has behind her name. She's an instructor of clinical neurology, the MS division at Keck School of Medicine at USC, and specialized in MS since 2004. So you think about that, 2004, that's a lot of history for the advances that we've had in MS, and so she's seen a lot over the years. Her past roles include manager of the USC Stroke and TIA program, and she's been an RN in emergency medicine. Ms. Tarlow's research interests include cognitive impairment, cultural diversity, and health education in MS. She's a member of the Consortium of MS Centers and the Clinical Advisory Council of the National MS Society, Southern California, Nevada chapter. I don't know about the rest of you, but I sure wish we didn't have a tongue twister or name of a disease, because every time I say multiple sclerosis over and over, it's pretty crazy. So anyway, Leslie participates in patient and peer education and mentoring. She's committed to community outreach. She's authored several publications and is a faculty advisor for MS-related programs. So at this point, I'd like to invite her to come up and share her knowledge with us. Thank you.
All that stuff.
Again, when she is finished, we will do Q&A, so be thinking of your questions for her.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. And if I go like this, that means next slide. Okay. So I just want to give you a little background about myself and how I fit into this MS world. When I was an emergency room nurse, and I went back to school and got my nurse practitioner in gerontology. And I worked in the nursing homes for about 3.5 years. And then a neurologist called me one night and said that I had been referred to him by another neurologist that I had trained with. And he said, "Would you like to join me in my MS practice?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What's MS?" So I had been a nurse for 25 years or something like that, and I didn't know what MS was. So this was before a lot of regulations set in with pharmaceutical companies. And when I did start with this neurologist, he said to all of his reps, "I want you to educate my NP." So I had quite an education, and yet every single day I'm learning something new about MS. And my patients teach me the most about MS. And well, I'm in an academic center where we have fellows and residents and interns and that sort of thing, medical students and nursing students. And the most important thing I can tell them is, come with me into the room with the patient. And then I have the patients tell their stories, because that is really how I learned about MS. And that's what drives me. That's what guides me in terms of how I deliver medical care. Because, as Dave was saying, it's about the whole person. And it's everybody's an individual. So without further ado, we'll get into the overview of what we're going to talk about today. I want to give you an overview of MS because, like I said, everything's changing all the time. And I went and reviewed some of the new research, the future directions, and I was amazed at how much is really being done in MS. So I'll give you a little overview of MS. I want to talk to you about a comprehensive team approach to managing MS. One thing that we're doing at USC and others are doing obviously throughout the country, and it really has such a profound benefit to patients. When I go into the room with them and I have a pharmacist with me, or I have a physical therapist or an occupational therapist with me, and we actually collaborate with the patient and help deliver the care that they need. I want to talk to you about who your healthcare team really is and how widespread it really is. And then also how to communicate with all of us and all of our medical jargon. So a little bit of background in MS epidemiology. I'm sure you've heard some of this before, these statistics. There's about 400,000 people with MS in the United States, but really I think it's closer to 800,000. These are really, it's very difficult to measure some of these numbers, about 2.3 million in the world. Women, 2 to 3 times more than men get multiple sclerosis. The age range, the bell curve is ages 20 to 50, but really we have teenagers and even children younger than that. There's such a thing as pediatric MS. And also I've diagnosed people who are in their 70s with MS. So we know that it occurs in all ethnic groups, or at least most ethnic groups, but most commonly in Caucasians. Some of the myths are that it's contagious. It's not contagious. It is not genetically linked, but it is, if you have it in families, the risk is higher. And as we know, there is no two people, there are no two people who MS is the same for. So what is MS? It's an autoimmune disease. There is a component of environmental influence and also genetic influence, but we really don't know what the cause is. It is a progressive neurological disease of the central nervous system. That's the brain, the optic nerves, the spinal cord. And it destroys myelin. Myelin is the covering of the neurons, the nerves. And as you can see from the cartoon over here, the figure on the left has intact myelin, looks like sausages. And then you can see there's inflammation, that's that red second one. And then as the myelin is degraded and destroyed, it leaves that neuron bare. That's why sometimes the nerve impulses don't get where they're going properly, or they get there intermittently, or they're slowed. And then if that neuron stays bare for long enough, it can actually disintegrate and break apart, and that's called neurodegeneration. So this is also, MS is the most common non-traumatic neurological disability in younger adults. So what is MS to people who have MS? It's symptoms. This is really what affects you guys. And as you can see, these are some of the symptoms that you might have. Very commonly, there's cognitive difficulty, there's fatigue, there's pain. You know, when I first started in MS, they would say, well, if you have pain, you don't have MS. And they would say, well, if you're only 17 years old, you don't have MS. You're too young. I actually had a young girl who was in her early 20s, came to USC to go to college, and she came to us in our clinic and said that she had, I think, come from Colorado, and a neurologist there had told her, well, your MRI looks like MS, but you can't have MS because you're only 17. So she didn't get treatment until she came to California, which is really sad. But there are a lot of myths. So there's, as I'm sure I don't have to tell you, there are vision problems. That's a very common presentation for MS, the first symptom. There's numbness and tingling that oftentimes doesn't go away, even though we call this relapsing remitting, one of the earlier stages of MS. It doesn't necessarily remit all the way. There's weakness, and there's spasms or spasticity, which can also, and there's gait disturbance, so can also impact walking. There's bowel and bladder difficulties. There's sleep difficulties. And of course, if you have sleep difficulty, then you're going to wake up tired. So it's going to affect your fatigue. There's a lot of depression in MS, which also causes sleep and fatigue difficulties. So as you can see, all of these things interact, and we have to sort of tease out for each individual person how best to approach the management of these symptoms. And that is one of our goals, not only to halt or slow down the progression of the disease, but also to help people function better and feel better. And I must say that what Dave is doing is so important, because exercise is probably, if I had to choose one thing to prescribe for my patients, it would be exercise that would help them the most. So there have been a lot of different categories over the years of what is MS. This diagram depicts the first upper left corner is CIS, which is one attack and MRI criteria, meeting MRI criteria for diagnosis of clinically isolated syndrome. And this is not clinically definite MS, but it does oftentimes lead to clinically definite MS. And we do have studies that show that if we treat clinically isolated syndrome, that it can postpone or delay the progression to clinically definite MS. Relapsing remitting MS, probably about 85% of people start with this category of disease, and that means you have relapses, which are attacks or exacerbations, or some of my patients will say exasperations. And that's when you have an attack, you have onset of symptoms that comes over hours to days, ramps up in severity, stays there untreated. It will go for weeks, maybe even a couple months, and then gradually go back to baseline. If it doesn't go all the way back to baseline, we call that incomplete recovery. And so we do try and treat relapses with steroids if we catch them early enough, and that also can help delay the progression to disability. So this is a common theme you're going to hear tonight, and that is disability. If you were going to have relapses and attacks, but you didn't accumulate any disability, okay, so we treat your relapses and be on our way. But this is the thing we're trying to stop. We're trying to stop this progression to disability. The lower left is secondary progressive MS, and this is a period of time after sort of usually about 10 or 15 years. People have less relapses, which are really tied to inflammation. So less inflammation and more progression, neurodegeneration and progression. And that is termed secondary progressive. In the old days, before we had medicine, before the early 90s, about 50% of people with MS would progress to secondary progressive. But now that we're treating people so much earlier, that's going to change the trajectory of progression and disability. The last box is primary progressive, which is basically a gradual, slow accumulation of disability, but without any clear-cut attacks. That doesn't mean that you can't have an attack or an active inflammation in your brain, what we call an enhancing brain lesion with primary progressive. We didn't think that that was the case many years ago, but now we know that you can have that. So how do you think about disability progression and how it affects your life? Some people don't understand about MRI and the importance of MRI. There's a lot of silent disease that goes on. And if you're not doing MRIs, like a lot of people say, well, I'm not having any clinical symptoms, so why do I need to go and get an MRI? They're expensive and I don't like the magnet, and it's loud, and I got to lie there for 3 hours. And so why does it matter? Why it matters is that lesions accumulate in your brain, and they're silent. There's no clinical symptoms. Anywhere from 7 to 10 lesions can accumulate before you have a clinical symptom. And so it really does matter, especially early on in the disease, to be watching for these lesions accumulating. And then we will alter therapy, for instance, if we see that a patient's on a therapy and they're still having a lot of MRI lesions and active lesions, that's when we will consider changing therapy. So on the blue square, at the very bottom, you see a bunch of yellow arrows. Well, those are lesions accumulating. This is an MRI, a depiction of MRI on the bottom. And that first column, that's preclinical. So that's before you've even had one attack. And then the white line with the spikes, those are attacks. And or relapses. The red line is the accumulation of lesions, what we call the burden of disease. And that blue or white line, it's hard to tell, that light blue line, that is brain volume. So you've heard the term brain atrophy. Well, what we do, we measure, and we have some really good measuring techniques with the software for MRIs now that'll measure brain volume. And so this, again, is what we are trying to prevent. So how do we prevent? Well, one of the biggest tools we have is early treatment. If you go on therapy with a disease-modifying therapy for MS, then the ongoing disease activity and damage that continues to happen within the brain and within the spinal cord, what we call the central nervous system, even when no symptoms are present, can be halted or slowed down. And our current disease-modifying therapies are really most effective early on in the disease. They address the inflammation. Here's another way of looking at early treatment. The green box on the left is when you intervene at diagnosis and you start treatment early. And you can see that the trajectory of the green bar at the bottom, that is the accumulation of disability. If you wait and you don't treat at diagnosis, but you treat sometime later, that's the gray bar. And as you can see, those people end up with more disability. And then, of course, if you have no treatment at all, you have the most disability. Now, I've had patients over the years who did not want to go on a disease-modifying therapy. And I still saw them regularly and tried to help them with their symptoms and prescribed exercise. But that is, unfortunately, we haven't found the way to impact this disease without those disease-modifying therapies, at least not as well as that. I'll talk about vitamin D in a little bit. So what are our current disease-modifying therapies? We have 16 now. When I started, there were 4. We had 3 interferons and Copaxone. Now we have all of these medicines. We have injectables, we have orals, and we have infusions. These are under investigation as experimental. Now, we know some of these really do work in MS, but they're experimental because they're ongoing in clinical trials, and we have differing amounts of data on these drugs, but it just gives you an idea of how many therapies are really being studied and may be potentially out on the market in the future. these are new therapies that are under study. And as you can see, some of them only have letters and numbers, which is common in clinical trials. So again, these are being studied. Some of these are for neuroprotection, and some are for neurorepair. And then these are really very interesting. So new approaches to MS therapy. If you notice, vitamin D3, D2 is actually not as effective, so if you're taking D2, you should be on D3. Lipoic acid, biotin, stem cells, biomarkers, genetic studies, the microbiome. Has anybody heard of the microbiome? So what that is it's the biology of the gut. And the immune system is born in the gut, and it can be affected by what we eat. And also, I don't know, has anybody heard of fecal transplant? Yes, I know, right? So if we could alter the biology of the gut in a person with an autoimmune disease and reboot it, so to speak, and have it be a normal immune system without the autoimmunity part, wouldn't that be cool? If we could take some prebiotics or probiotics or whatever, right? So the fact that diet and the biology of the gut are being studied is very exciting to me, because I kind of like that approach. MS is different for every individual. I have so many patients who say to me, well, am I progressing the same way your other patients are? And how are they doing on this therapy that you want me to take? So I want to tell you again about what I think is really essential, and you can create a comprehensive team approach in your own life with your own providers, even if they're not all in one place. So this is my graphic for just a few of the team members. That top pink circle is the doctor, the nurse practitioner, the physician's assistant, and also referrals to other specialties like primary care. How many people I've taken care of over the years who say to me, my MS doctor is my primary doctor, because I primarily have MS. So I have sought out primary care doctors who have an interest in MS so that they can help me to take care of a patient. I'm not really good with screening for shingles and all of that stuff. I used to be, but not anymore. So I don't really do primary care. Urology, gynecology, pain specialists, all of those types of subspecialties are our partners in this team approach. That orange circle on the right, I couldn't live without. That's the nurse in the clinic, the medical assistant who rooms the patient in the clinic, a pharmacist who we also have in our clinic, but a lot of people don't have, but they are wonderful sources of information. I'll tell you that the medical assistant knows more about most of the patients than anybody else in the clinic, because they sit and talk to them a lot. That yellow square, orange square at the bottom is the family, friends, care partners. I didn't have room for partners, so I said caregiver, but care partners. And on the left, the purple, therapists. PT and OT are critical. We have a social worker in our clinic who runs our support group, our MS support group, and does counseling. And so these are the people that I rely heavily on in my practice. But there are more. I mean, you could have a trainer that you rely heavily on. And so this is not the end all. It's just a beginning of a comprehensive team. So these are some tips for communication when you go in to have your appointment. A lot of times, I don't know about you, but I go into the doctor and he says, or she says, Have you been? I go, great, I'm fine. No problems. And then I go home, my husband will say, so did you tell him about your foot? Did you tell him about your this or your that? I go, oh no, I forgot. So when I'm not the provider, when I'm the patient, I'm clueless. And so I draw on that cluelessness to come up with these tips for you. Prepare a list of questions or things that you want to focus on. Either you write down the answers that you get or you have somebody with you that can write down the answers. Remember that nurses, therapists, pharmacists, all good sources of information. And tell the truth. Build a trust with your provider. You want to make sure they know about that weird little sensation you have that you don't really know if it's important. Or you had some cramps in your big toe and yeah, you know, it's probably you slept wrong. I had a patient early on when I really didn't know much about MS. And I worked very closely with this first neurologist who trained me. And this was a lady who was in a wheelchair. And she came in to see me in follow-up visit. And she said her whole arm and shoulder was numb. And it had been numb since she woke up. And she couldn't move it. She couldn't do anything with it. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what it was. So I went and got my physician. And I said, I need your help with an exam. So he comes in, and he knows his patients, right? He comes in and he talks to her and he says, were you doing your grocery shopping online last night? So she's sitting in a wheelchair. She's doing her computer work, and she falls asleep. And there's a nerve in the armpit. And she put pressure on it. It's called Saturday night palsy. It's like when the guy was in the car and he put his arm around the girl and they were watching the movie, right? And then he had numbness in his arm. So that's not MS. There are things that might seem like MS that are not MS, but there are also things that might seem like not so important that could be important. Fess up about your bad habits. If you're smoking, if you're drinking. I have a patient who was drinking 4 to 6 hard liquor drinks a day because he is a bartender. And of course, when he's drinking, he's smoking. So I just saw him the other day, and he has high blood pressure, okay? I saw him, he had gone home to South Dakota for vacation. And I guess back in South Dakota, nobody drank, and so he didn't drink. So for a month, he was back there, he didn't drink. He says, everything's better. I said, what's better? He goes, everything. So he's still not drinking, which is really cool. But tell us about these challenges that you're having. Don't keep them a secret. Be honest. 90% of people have fatigue issues and pain issues and bladder issues and sexual issues. So be open with us about that. Meet all your needs, not just some of them. Think about the physical. We talked about energy, about walking. Dave mentioned a foot drop, very common. There are things we can do to help you with that. Well, the physical therapist can help you with that. And the trainers can help you with their resistance, right? There's a patient that I had that came to me. He was in his early 40s and he was married, and he said he was having some erectile dysfunction. And I was like the designated person in the practice to talk to people about sexual dysfunction. I don't know why. But I said to him, have you talked to your wife? He goes, no, I'm too embarrassed. I said, okay. I want you to go home and talk to your wife. And then I want you to come back and bring her. So they came back together to see me, and he said, I'm fine. I said, what do you mean you're fine? He says, I don't have a problem anymore. So all it took was a little conversation to cure him of his erectile dysfunction. So what I tell people is that sexual dysfunction is 90% above the neck. You know, if you think you're not going to be able to perform, that's a lot of times the problem. Emotional problems are big in MS. Depression is very more prevalent than it is in the general population. Anxiety is very prevalent. And we have our partners in psychiatry and psychology to help us if we're unable to get there with our first-line treatments. So again, make sure that you're meeting that need, because if you're depressed, it's very hard to get motivated to do your exercise, and we know exercise is the most important thing you can do. Cognition is an issue. Slowed processing and difficulty with multitasking affects almost everyone with MS, and of course, everyone over the age of 50. But there are also strategies, and occupational therapy is very helpful. There are online strategies to help with that. And then what's happening at home? Is your spouse understanding, supportive, your children, or are they not on board? This can be a very difficult time. There's a lot of divorce in MS and a lot of families that don't understand what someone's going through. Most of the MS symptoms are invisible. Numbness, I can't see your numbness. I can't see your fatigue. I can't see your cognition. You have to tell me these things, right? And then work. Are you able to do the work that you've always done? Are you getting slower? Are you trying to make advancements? You're early on in your career. You're afraid you're not going to be able to. What kind of accommodations can you expect to get? And will you have workplace discrimination to deal with? There's transitions that we can help you with. Maybe you're going to go from the career you're in now to a different career as disability kicks in. So these are things that we consider to be all of your needs. The healthcare team that I was talking about is not just those circles, but think about your primary care physicians, your psychiatric care, which is mostly medications most of the time. Counseling happens either with psychologists or social workers or marriage and family counselors. Pain management. We will give medicines for pain, but when that is not sufficient, I always refer patients to pain specialists. Some patients need a stimulator implanted. So there are things they can do that we don't do in the MS clinic. There's urology, gynecology, pharmacy, physical and occupational therapy. We have a program in occupational therapy called Lifestyle Redesign for MS, and it's occupational therapy teaching people how to make those changes in their life. And then, of course, exercise is essential. Now, just a word about nutrition, because I'm really grateful to what you said about be careful about these diets that promise all these things. There's some things that we know. We know that obesity and high salt diets may be potential risk factors for MS. We know that low vitamin D is a risk factor for not only the development of MS, but the progression of MS. So you should all maximize your vitamin D. How do you do effective communication in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever you got in the room, right? You mentioned something about journaling, and journaling's great. And journaling's great for a lot of reasons. It helps you focus your own thoughts on what's really important to you and what concerns you want to bring into the visit. It's a way to write down your questions so that you don't forget to ask them. There are a lot of apps out there that can help with this as well. You have to talk about your questions. I have people who have had MS for 15 years still asking me, what is a relapse? They don't know. No one's ever told them, what is a relapse? What does remitting mean? I don't think my MS is remitting. It's progressing. What is demyelination? What is the significance of an MRI lesion? What do you mean by, and plug in any word that we commonly, or acronym that we might use in medicine that you don't understand. Because sometimes we use these words and we think, well, we don't think about it because we expect all the patients to kind of know what we're talking about. You need to just tell us, what are you talking about? What does that mean? And then think about your goals. Think about your goals at every stage of life. When you're young, you're going to build your career, you're going to have a family, maybe you haven't met your soulmate yet and you want to get married. I had a young girl who had diabetes. She had an implanted pump for her insulin. She was an attractive young girl, but here she was in her early 20s. She didn't have a boyfriend yet. She had an implanted pump for diabetes, for insulin, and she had a pump for baclofen. So she had 2 pumps implanted. And she was a little worried that nobody would really want to, take her on as a girlfriend with 2 implanted pumps. But guess what? Somebody did. And so think about those goals when you're getting to, the end of your career. What are you going to do in retirement? What are you going to do to have fun? What's your bucket list? There was a story of a woman who was told she could not have children by somebody, some neurologist somewhere. So we try and debunk these myths. I want you to ask for support. Talk to the team about finances. People are often, they think that we don't, really deal with finances. We don't care. It's not part of what we do. We're just medical professionals. Unfortunately, it is everybody's, we have to all be cognizant of what's happening in the financial insurance world with healthcare. And so I don't want to hear that you had to pay $4,000 copay on an MRI because you didn't ask us, is this really necessary? Because it's going to cost me $4,000. So, and that really did happen in our practice. And this young man's mother, who was a single parent, took out a second on her home to pay for his MRI copay. And that's just one MRI, 1 year. So it was horrifying to us. We didn't find out about it until after. Support programs like this one, like MS Views and News, the goal is to educate and to help people to provide, to know what your rights are, to know, do you need help with mobility? Do you need help with transportation? How can we help you with respite care? That sort of thing. Exercise programs. Where should you go for that? Online resources, there are a ton. And I just got a card from Active MSers, which I'm going to check out. Basically, I want you to support yourself. I want you to realize you are the center of that team. And I want you to understand the pillars of health and wellness will actually help you with your MS more than anything else. And so what are those pillars? Sleep, to rest and rejuvenate yourself. And that could be partially, getting some rest during the day, just being quiet, closing your eyes and just being silent. Just concentrate on your breathing. It could be massage, which I really like. It could be yoga, meditation. You need proper nutrition. And, we don't really know what that means for everybody, but it may be different for everybody. One thing I know everybody needs is water. So a lot of people don't drink enough because they have bladder problems. But you need to drink water. And then go to the urologist for your bladder problems. But drink water. You probably need some green stuff in your diet. You probably need some protein in your diet. And healthy fats are better than non-healthy fats. I had a girl come in recently, and I am in Los Angeles, near Hollywood. So she comes in, she goes, I'm very confused. Should I do paleo or should I do plant-based? So it is very confusing, and there is ongoing research in diet There's actually somebody at USC doing a modified fasting protocol in MS. News at 11. We just have to wait until that data comes out. But in the meantime, use your common sense, right? Want you to really think about your emotional health and your mental health, your spiritual health, being good to yourself, surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, positive, who have gratitude. These are things that are going to help you. And manage your stress, because we all have stress. And having stress in your life is just a fact. So you really have to do something actively to combat that and to prevent the effects of stress on your body. And so that's, again, that relaxation breathing, that exercise, meditation. So in summary, know your MS. Your MS is different than anybody else's MS. Know what it is for you and what you want to focus on when you go and see your healthcare team. Identify who that team is, including your family and friends. Ask questions, write them down. Share your goals with us. Tell us about your families that you have 2 kids at home and they both just got engaged. And how are you going to pay for it? And then, strive for wellness. Thank you very much for your attention. And I can answer any questions you might have.